This morning, it is great to have you here, especially those who are listening and watching. I want to share a story with you this morning. There was one pastor who was getting ready to speak at a big conference. He was a little nervous because his presentation was long and then also complex presentation. And just before he was called up to speak, his wife slipped him a note that simply said, KISS, so with a big capital letter, KISS. And he didn't have much time to think about it because he was called up to begin his presentation. He was eloquent, going on and on about the intricacies of his topic. And then after his presentation, he sat down and then he asked his wife, "Were you giving me a kiss to encourage me?" And his wife smiled sweetly and said, "No, kiss means keep it simple, stupid." I thought maybe keep it simple, sweetie is better. I hear many times from people, "I am so busy. I don't have time for myself, and my kids' schedule is so busy. And then my schedule is crazy with my kids' and grandkids' schedules. And I am overwhelmed. And I am exhausted." And on, booked until the next century. Sound familiar? And can you believe it? This is Thursday, Springfield Public School begins. Summer break is gone. And our calendar is getting full again. My son will be in senior this year, and I feel already overwhelmed with his school and activities and college preparation. And we feel that a busy life is normal. A full of schedule in our calendar is normal. And our buckets are full with the to-do list. So what do? Many people organize to-do list in their calendars. It is good to have a calendar. However, we still overwhelmed. So this morning, we are going to learn how to keep our life simple in biblical way using our calendar, because everybody has calendar. 2,000 years ago, there was a woman who was so busy like some of us. Her name is Martha. The story of text from Luke chapter 10, 38 through 42 is about Martha and her sister Mary. After teaching throughout Galilee, Jesus returned to Jerusalem, and he spoke in Jerusalem and then visited his friend Mary and Martha in the tiny village of Bethany, just 2 miles from Jerusalem. So here are today's words. Now, as they went on their way, he entered a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to what he was saying. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks. So she came to him and asked, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her. In the culture of hospitality, when someone visits a house, the mother or women of the house prepare the great meals for the guest. Mary and Martha had no time to prepare for this drop-in visit by Jesus and his 12 dusty disciples. And Martha had herself in the kitchen getting a meal going, trying to provide good hospitality. And she tried to make the appetizers, entries, and drinks. She was busy. And I can picture the scene. After a while, Martha snapped. She lost her temper. She was clearly angry. She was overwhelmed. She gave Mary the stink eye, the look that says, "Mary, get in here and help me." And maybe Martha started dropping pans to get Mary's attention. Boom, boom. "Don't you care, Mary?" Well, nothing worked. Now I picture Martha with a wooden spoon in her hand, getting right up in Jesus' face and saying, "Jesus, you tell her to help me. Order that the lazy sister of mine into the kitchen before I do something with this spoon." And here is Jesus said, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing." If we applied what Jesus said to our lives, and Jesus is saying that you have too many things in your pocket or calendar that make you worry and overwhelmed, keep it simple. Did you hear that? Keep it simple. Through the story, we can learn how to keep our life simple. In the story, some people don't value Martha like Mary because Martha didn't choose to listen to God's word. But in fact, Martha had a good faith. In the Gospel of John, Mary and Martha's brother died. When their friend Jesus came to their house, their brother Lazarus was already in a tomb for 4 days. At the time, Mary sat at home, but Martha ran to Jesus and proclaimed to Jesus, "Jesus, I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you." Everybody didn't believe that Jesus would raise Lazarus from the dead, but Martha believed. The same Martha was busy today with the unexpected guest. She got too busy. And it is the same to us. It is easy for us to get busy. And Jesus told Martha, there is need of only one thing. He's saying, you need to prioritize what it is important today. What is the number one priority now? When I organize, but sometimes I feel that everything looks important. Have you ever experienced that? It is like that children who don't want to give away all the toys because everything still looks good to them. And one day, I got frustrated with how to prioritize my calendar and make it simple. And I read some books and researched it for an answer. And then I found that to keep simple, we need to know what is the main thing to keep. And then as a Christians, I found that first, we needed to ask 2 questions that help us to make things simpler. The 2 questions is that what would my schedule look like if God was in charge of my schedule? That question made me make a difference. Who do I want to become? That is the second question we need to ask. We usually grab our calendars and start plugging in all appointments and where we needed to be and when we needed to be, picking up kids and grandkids at the soccer field and in other places. And we try to not forget or neglect anything, and then squeeze another schedule into the next most urgent to-do list. And still try to find the room for a meal and 2 with the family. And the other day, I looked at my calendar sitting at my kitchen table. The calendar was full of to-do list for the church and for my home. And I was thinking, if God saw my schedule, what God would say? If God were in charge of my schedule, what would my schedule look like? And I started to scratch out things that would not please God. And I had to reschedule some appointments and scratched out some to-do list for my home. Well, after I did that, I was ready to go my room and to go bed. And I stood up, and then I saw my living room. Well, cleaning the living room was on my to-do list for the day. And I thought about that question. What would my schedule look like if God was in charge of my schedule? And then I talked to myself, well, God won't be mad if it is a little messy. And then I went to bed and took a rest. Before you write your to-do list in your calendar, ask the question, what would my schedule look like if God was in charge of my schedule? And then also ask another question, who do I want to become? Plan and schedule with the big picture of your life in mind. Who do I want to become in this next season of my life? You cannot become someone fundamentally different from the person you are right now until you begin to make commitment in writing on your calendar, then living it out. Keeping simple requires disciplines, practice. Put it in the calendar and do it. The American novelist John Grisham, who was an attorney, wanted to become a writer. So finally one day he decided that I want to start to write. On all the morning for 1 hour, and I'm going to write one word message to myself. And then he put the word writing in his calendar. And he did it. Today he's one of the most prolific and appreciated novelists of our day. Even his book have been translated into 42. Keep it simple requires purposeful stewardship of each day. Who do you want to become? And start today and experience the transformative change of your life and your family. Secondly, we need to know to keep simple. We need to know that we need to use our calendar to invest in our relationships rather than putting other stuff that doesn't fill our life. I believe that the most important thing is relationships. Not wealthy, not success, not looking good to others. Write your relationship time in your calendar. I'm sure that when Jesus stopped by Mary and Martha's house, he wanted to talk to them. He wanted to catch up with them. Jesus didn't say, "I am hungry. Mary, Martha, feed me and my disciples." What he did, he sat down with them. And Jesus wanted to catch up with his friend and Mary, Martha. Mary got it. In that picture, I can see that Mary said to Jesus, "Jesus, how have you been? How have you been? How were the Pharisees? Have you treated you? How have the Pharisees treated you? What would you tell me about God?" And then Mary, she sat at his feet. But Martha was too busy, and she ran to the kitchen. Jesus went for her to sit in a circle of time with him. And we recognize that our society is getting more far away from relationships. Families don't talk much. We look at our smartphones and text each other. Even sometimes we text each other even though we are in the same house. Spouses don't have time with the busy schedules for work and kids. And grown-up children don't have time to visit their parents with their busy lives. I encourage you, use your calendar to protect the time and space necessary for your marriage and your family. Don't make excuses. You put time in the calendar and then change them later because there are other things you think you need to do. Don't make excuses. Put your date night with your spouse and put your time with the family right down in your calendar and leave it out. If Jesus came to our home, I'm sure that he would want to sit down with us and talk with us. Our youth group usually has a life group on Sunday nights. And this fall, they will move life group on Sunday nights because they want to give a Sunday night time to family. The youth group will encourage the parents to have a family time on Sunday nights, to have family time and share their faith journey make a big difference in teenagers' lives. So put that one in your calendar. Invest in your relationship using your calendar. The last thing to keep our life simple is to put your time, our time with God in our calendar. Jesus told Mary, there is need of only one thing. In other words, Jesus is saying, Martha, your heart needs to be filled with God's words. And Mary chose to have the fullness in her heart. Martha showed exactly what happens when we are so busy. And there is no time for spiritual fullness from God's words. Her heart was empty. Martha's heart was empty on that day. She loved God, but she didn't have time with God. Which was the reason why she complained to Jesus, holding a big wooden spoon in front of him. When we connect with God daily, our day is better because we get God's wisdom for the day, and we know that God's presence is with us through the day. And sometimes I hear that from people. I wish I felt close to God. I never really hear much from God like other people seem to. And I would like to ask a question that, how is your daily time with God? To connect to God is to allocate purposeful time with God every day. You can have a place in your home where you can sit uninterrupted, or a booth in a coffee shop, or a bench on your patio. And be consistent with the 15 minutes blocks of time with God. Every day is 15 minutes. Think about it. We have 168 hours per week. And 15 minutes, not much, comparing with 168 hours. That 15 minutes every day gonna change your life and change your family's life as you connect with God. And write down your time with God in your calendar. And if you want to hear more from God, and you need to be where God's word is taught, regularly and weekly, where God's word is taught. And let me tell you that church calendars, church attendance was a part of Jesus' weekly rhythm. And the Gospel of Luke said that on the Sabbath day, Jesus went into the synagogue as was his custom. If you want more of God's direction and purpose in your life, and you need to adopt the same weekly rhythm that Jesus practiced. Church was on Jesus' calendar. So if you have that, I encourage you to take out your phone and add it to yours. I did that. Put your Sunday morning with God in your calendar and make it a non-negotiable part of your schedule. Keep it simple. It is all about God. See our lives from God's perspective and prioritize our lives in God's perspective, and put God first in your life. And this morning, as I'm closing this message, I'm challenging you to look at your calendar today as we begin the fall season. Keep it simple and know that what is the main thing to keep. Check out whether your calendar shows God in charge of your calendar, your schedule. Whether your calendar shows who you want to become. And see whether your calendar shows you invest your relationships. And see whether you have a time with God every day. If it is not, I encourage you to write down in your calendar and practice and live it out. And keep your life simple. And then you have God's blessing through this season.